Hello and welcome back to Leader Up, a podcast of Army Management Staff College. Leader Up is a professional conversation where we discuss a broad range of leadership and leader development topics with an emphasis on the Army civilian professional. I'm your host, David Howey. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the CES Advanced course. And our guest is an advanced course instructor and an old friend of mine. This is Mr. Lyle Adams, and it is a real pleasure to welcome Lyle into the Leader Up world. And we've worked together for years, both in the basic course and the intermediate course. And so, Lyle, welcome to Leader Up, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you very much, David. It's an honor to be able to represent Mr. Hawkins and all the advanced course faculty in this interview, and I value this opportunity. Thank you very much.
And so I'm looking forward to hearing more about the CES Advanced course. Just for the Leader Up audience out there, I've taught many years in the basic course and the intermediate course, and I've taught just pieces in the advanced course, but not the whole thing. So I'm learning as much about this topic as the folks in the Leader Up audience will today after this podcast. And so, Lyle, let's just start big picture about the advanced course, what it is, who the students are, and kind of what good comes out of the advanced course.
Sure. Well, first off, the target audience for the CES Advanced course is Army civilians in the grades of 13, 14, and 15s. Some of them are supervisors. It's not a requirement to be a supervisor, but supervisors get priorities of the seats. It's a 4-week course. It's currently running right now, both in resident and mobile team out in Picatinny, New Jersey, and some virtual classrooms also, which I'm participating in. Generally, we think of the advanced course as an experience inside an experience, where not only are they getting the benefit of 24 some lessons academically, but they also work individually in small groups and in seminar groups for experiences associated with those lessons, along with a couple bigger projects to kind of test the mettle of the group dynamics, and also to make sure the 16 or 18 students in the seminar are learning from each other in an adult learning environment.
And so let's start with the individual assignments that are in the advanced course. And I want to start with, on the individual assignments, the first thing I'd like to talk about are what I refer to as personality instruments. And so what are they? And the ones that are in the advanced course, what are they? What benefits are they? And how are they different? Because the advanced course uses a number of instruments.
Absolutely. The first part of the course, we focus on personal awareness. In fact, that is the theme of the first week. And basically, we're trying to provide the students a lot of opportunities to see themselves. So we provide a lot of experiences and a lot of tools to put them in a position where they're kind of holding a mirror up to see who they are. And then we're also establishing some feedback opportunities, so they're getting perspectives on themselves from other people, to include the faculty. We offer 8 personnel instruments in the advanced course. A couple of those are embedded in the core curriculum. One is called the Strength Deployment Inventory, or SDI, which is an online instrument that involves helping people understand the motivations they have if they go into conflict. Also part of the core curriculum is one called the Code Learning Style Inventory, KLSI. It has to do with helping people understand how they discover or learn the world and their preferences. And then there's a package of 4 that we've recently included in the core curriculum under the Army's Athena project, which maybe you've heard about. But basically, the Athena project is kind of a wholesale operation where the Army invested in several instruments, and they're asking both professional military education and civilian military education to incorporate them in the experience. And those, the ones we're doing in the advanced course, are called the Individual Adaptability Measure, the Self-Awareness and Individual Difference Inventory, the Systems Thinking Scale, and then Leader 360. So the first three of those generates a report for the students to gain some understanding about themselves. And then the fourth one, Leader 360, we're actually helping the students establish their 360 account and having them load in some folks that can provide perspectives on them by email invitation. And then they will have this account for them the rest of their career. And then there's two other electives that are been long-term in the CES courses that we have incorporated into some electives that the students can pick from. And one is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, and the Thomas-Kilmann Conflict Mode Instrument, which is another instrument that helps folks understand how they react when they go into conflict. So that pretty much covers the gambit of instruments that we offer in the advanced course, Dave.
And what do you see as an advanced course instructor? What do you see come out of that for the students that's useful or helpful to them?
Well, as we explained, all these instruments are based on theory, where someone took a good portion of their life to determine some cause and effect relationship, in human dynamics. So we offer it as something for them to consider, right? And it provides 8 more possibilities for them to just get a perspective on themselves so they can understand, how they go about life, how they see life, what are their priorities, how do they tend to think, how do they tend to process information. So it's just another opportunity for them to kind of unpack themselves while they're here, to get a better understanding of why they interact the way they do, and what does that mean to their leadership capabilities.
And another individual activity that you do in the advanced course is individual coaching. And just what does that look like, and what kind of benefits come out of that?
Yeah, that's another good question. Thanks for asking. So generally, we have 16 students in a seminar. Sometimes there's 17, sometimes there's 18, but generally the course is designed for 16. And it's taught, as are all the CES courses, team teaching with another instructor. So we divide up the students, half in charge of one instructor and half under the other. And we set up a schedule so we're individually sitting down with each student for about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. And faculty have quite a bit of liberty on the style of how they want to approach this session. But generally, many of them do this way. One thing we talk about is some early entries they made in their leadership journal with regard to establishing goals, strengths, and weaknesses, and they do a little skill inventory. So we take those initial thoughts they have from week 1, and we're doing these in week 3. We do individual coaching in week 3, and we kind of chat with them about, how is your goals going, considering you've been here now and you're halfway through the course. We also look at their instruments. Specifically, we look at the SDI, the KLSI instruments to have a deeper discussion to make sure that they understand what the reports say, even though they've also been exposed to the reports in a lesson. The Athena reports are confidential. We don't get, the way the Army designed it is we don't get input. They can share with us, but we don't get their reports. By then, we would have graded their essays. They do a leadership philosophy essay, which I think we're going to talk about more in a little bit. So we can talk to them about the content and what we learned as far as their ability to write. Also, during the course, they do a progressive plan called an individual development plan that talks to their professional future and personal future, actually. So this runs the entire course. So they're about 3 weeks into that plan. So we'll share with them some thoughts with regard to their plan. We'll kind of look at their entire career. Where are they at in their career? What are their plans? And one key question is, what's their next professional development event after they finish the advanced course. Many students have that locked in, and they're excited to make that next move. Many students need some help in understanding what professional development opportunities are available.
And yeah, I would like to talk about that leader philosophy paper, what that looks like and what the benefit is of that, and what kind of guidance the students receive to put that together.
Yes, sure. Well, one thing we feel we have an obligation to measure with regard to senior Army leaders is their ability to communicate, through the written language. So one goal of assigning them to do this as a requirement is to measure their ability to write professionally. Some are comfortable with that, some are not. So sometimes we have to tailor and mentor to wherever the student's at. But the other reason is for them to codify and put in writing what we call their leadership philosophy. This is due week 2. So by then they've been exposed to leadership doctrine, a full wealth of instruments, and many, many experiences that help them come up with descriptors of both good and poor leadership. So the goal is that they look at themselves and they decide what's important to me from a leadership perspective, almost as if they were writing a paper to introduce themselves to maybe a new workforce. And they wanted to kind of jumpstart their ability to be influential. As far as the technical, it's a 500-word minimum. Most essays are probably 750 or so, a couple pages. We educate them in the 5-paragraph format. We encourage them to use active versus passive voice and to use first person versus second or third person, where they're actually owning the language. And most people aren't used to writing in first person. So it's to get them to own their leadership philosophy from their perspective. And their papers are evaluated and scored out by a faculty member. They have to receive a certain minimum score of 80, which already puts it as a high standard. Thank you.
And so when you say write in the first person versus second or third, I think what you're saying is instead of saying great leaders listen to their people or something like that, you would encourage them to say, it's my goal to listen to my people, something along those lines.
Exactly. First person is I, me, my, mine. And third person is talking about a leader. In other words, some great leader across the room, as if you're writing a handbook for somebody else, but not actually sharing your own personal leadership beliefs.
Right, because when if they eventually do share that with people that they work with, it's much more powerful when it's about them, not a objective treatise about leadership and not about them personally. I remember we encouraged that in the basic course when we had that activity there as well when you and I were teaching together. And so that's all kind of the stuff about them, the self-awareness piece, but there's also an individual assignment about their organization. Mm-hmm. It's where they see a problem or a challenge in their organization, and they attempt to define it and come up with some way to deal with it. And just what is that activity and what is that all about?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. We instituted this about a year ago, and it's part of a lesson referred to as AC 412. The title is Force Management. And students are required to do this as a pre-course event. And we want them to do it as a pre-course event because they're actually searching out and writing about an issue or challenge that they have in their organization. And we encourage them to talk to peers, talk to their boss, maybe talk to a couple people, couple levels up. Say I'm going to be going to the advanced course, and they want me to, find a specific, unique challenge we're having at our workplace and to write about it. And they write an information paper, and they lay out some specifics, facts, and assumptions, and things going on with regard to that problem. And they have to do that ahead of time. So that's all taken care of before the course starts. And then deeper in the course, actually during the second week, when we do that lesson 412, this is how it progresses. First, the students receive a lesson on Army Force Management, which is also oftentimes called How the Army Runs, or the acronym HTAR, which includes 4 main phases of how the Army changes itself at the highest levels. And those are the Joint Capabilities Integration and Development System, Force Development, Defense Acquisition System, and Planning, Programming, Budgeting, and Execution. So they get a whole afternoon of these lessons, and we provide them a lot of information about the Army Force Management process. And then what they do is we split the seminar in half. So there's about 8 or 9 students in each group, and they go in for a couple hours and they share their individual issue or challenge amongst those 8 or 9 students. And then after they've done that, and that's just basically to get some perspective and to start thinking about how the issues can be melted into what they've been exposed to. And then they go work into their 4 separate small groups. Now, we call the small groups virtual learning groups. They're called VLGs, and they're sometimes fondly referred to as villages. So each small village has 4 or 5 students. So they go back into their villages now that they've been exposed to a wider range of issues from other students, and they need to decide which of the organizational challenges of the students within their village do they want to make their village project. So they decide one of the 4 or 5 in their village. And this is happening in all 4 villages or all 4 small groups. And then they have time to work based on some instructions to take their issue as a seminar, as a small group, and be prepared to present how they're making the connection between that particular organizational issue and the Army Force Management curriculum that they received earlier in the week. So we want them to take that ground level issue and somehow make the connection to the 30,000 foot view from the Army. And then they present those to each other, which it deepens the learning. That's how that works.
And so I wanted to move on to the small groups. We talked about the individual work. And so these small groups, you said they're 4 to 5 students in composition. So do you keep them together during the entire 4 weeks of the advanced course?
That's an excellent question. And in resident, we always encourage them to switch every week. But we found out when we got into virtual, that was a little bit too hard to get the group dynamics restarted. So where we're at now is at a midpoint, basically the end of the second week, we put at the students' feet the decision to whether they continue in their virtual groups or whether they change. The original virtual groups are loaded by the instructors, based on the diversity in the background within the classroom. Oftentimes, the students will decide to stay in the same groups because they're comfortable with them. But we make sure that they understand that this is a real depth breadth issue. Do they want to stay with the same 3 or 4 people to get to know them deeper, or do they want to scramble it up and go for the breadth where they get to know more people, but not as deep? We just make sure that they make a decision based on using their decision process, so they come to an agreement on how they want to do the back end of the course. And oftentimes they do take comfort in the villages that they already have. And as far as how do we use the small groups? Well, many of our lessons have a small group activity that's embedded in the lesson as sort of a mini practical exercise. And when we send them off to go to easels, I guess it's what we normally do in the resident. In virtual, we send them to Blackboard Ultra collaboration rooms. Each small group or village has one of the collaboration rooms of the 4 assigned to that seminar for them to go to. So oftentimes we will send them off with specific instructions for 15 or 20 minutes to do small group work in their villages, or we use another feature in Blackboard Collaborate Ultra called the breakout room feature, where we can randomly put them in groups, usually pairs or triads, where we build a temporary walls around them and create a classroom for them to be together for, again, 10 or 15 minutes, and then we pull them back by vaporizing those walls, and we pull them back into the main virtual room. Over.
Yes, roger that. Thank you. And we talked about the individual assignments and the small group, but there's also work that the students do at the seminar level, which could be anywhere from 15, 16, 17, possibly 18 students. And what kind of activities are in that category that are worked on as the entire seminar?
Yeah. So as you can see, we distinctively scaffold from personal in the early weeks to smaller groups in the second week, and then towards the end of the second week and into the third week, we're starting to make the assumption that they can handle big projects, because now they're starting to show dynamic strength at the seminar level. And they do 2 events at the seminar level. One I've already spoken to was AC 412, which is how the Army runs force management, where they had taken their organizational problem and ran it, shared it, worked it in their villages, and then presented it to each other. And the other big event they do at the seminar level is called AC 415, which has to do with Army design methodology. And we do that in the third week. And that is a seminar-centric practical activity where the students receive a lesson on Army design methodology and then work through an assigned project to determine if the Army Civilian Corps is ready to support the Army of the future, specifically multi-domain operations, and any other futuristic guidance that the Army may have in strategic planning documents. During this process, they do a couple in-progress reviews as they're building their products, which they share with other seminars to get a perspective on their work. And then ultimately, they present a formal brief towards the end of, first part of the fourth week, to another faculty member who is playing the role of an Army civilian leader, SES, receiving the seminar's outcome of how they wrestled with this question of, is the Army Civilian Corps ready to help support the Army's future expectations?
And there's one other activity that I believe they do as a seminar, and I just would like to hear you address that. It's a charter. And what is that? What does it look like? And when is it done? And how is it beneficial?
Yeah. So from a content point of view, we ask them to do a charter to establish some mutual expectations for the course and some rules of engagement for the classroom. And as you can imagine, bringing together 18 senior Army civilians into any classroom, be it resident, be it a mobile classroom, be it virtual, it takes some special rigging to help them come together as a unified group heading in the same direction. So it builds upon some earlier events that we have them do before we ask them to do the charter. They individually lay out their achieves and avoids for the course. What do they want to get out of the course? What do they not want to see in the course? Okay. And they do that individually. And then they also do that at the village level. They do that at the small group level. They're synchronizing as a team of 4 or 5. what's the things they want to achieve and what's the things they'd rather not see happen, they'd rather avoid in a classroom. And then from the seminar's perspective, they go up one more notch, and that scaffolds up to them creating a charter, which is a written document that lays out what their mutual goals are, what their mutual expectations are, what roles or responsibilities might they need to establish in order to help manage the classroom, what's some ways they're going to participate in the classroom, whether it's virtual or whether it's brick and mortar. What's some things they're going to hold themselves to make sure that it's a healthy, safe adult learning environment.
And there's one thing that is very unique about the advanced course that is not in any of the other courses, and that is the presence of the SESs, the members of the Senior Executive Service. And just talk about what that looks like, what the SESs do, and what the benefit is for the students.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we're really proud of the SES mentor engagement program. It's probably been around about 6 years. The overall goal is having 13s, 14s, and 15s as students, their next bridge for those that want to continue to raise to higher levels of responsibility, particularly for 14s and 15s, would be to consider Senior Executive Service, SES, taking on that next step. So we believe it's important to expose them to some real SESs to help answer those questions or alleviate those fears that they might have, because many have never engaged with an SES, nor do they understand how do you get to be an SES. So in this second and fourth week, in all our modalities, whether it's resident, out at a MET, mobile team, or in virtual, we have an SES assigned for week 2 and week 4 to join us. They break away from their normal schedule, and they will either be TDY, staying in a hotel and actually physically be in the classrooms at Leavenworth, or they will be joining us as a virtual guest. But during week 2 and week 4, the SES visit the classrooms on a set schedule, so they join us in the academic endeavor, and they help us expand that conversation. And then also, part of their time, there's a schedule where there's 20-minute mentoring appointments where students can optionally, voluntarily, sign up for these times to have a one-on-one conversation with the SES. Now, unfortunately, there's not enough slots for every student, particularly if we have a high amount of seminars. So it's first come, first serve. But usually those that are eager seek it out and satisfy what they want to get from talking to the SES. And also in the second week, that SES hosts what's called an enterprise-wide perspective session, where we bring all the students together, whether it's in the auditorium at Eisenhower, whether it's in the virtual big room in virtual, or whether it's in a gathering room at the Met. We bring them all together, and the SES presents an enterprise-wide perspective, laying out his or her view of SES life. And they usually also have some leadership tenets that they usually share. And then depending on where they're from, maybe they're from Army Materiel Command, maybe they're from Army Corps of Engineers, they may have a certain flavor that they talk to based on where they're coming from. And then in the fourth week, that SES, beyond doing mentoring appointments and classroom visits, also serves as the guest speaker for our graduation, again, regardless of what modality we're in. Any other questions with regard to the SES program?
Well, just to comment, I think it's a great program, and I'm also in awe of it. Just not only from the benefit that the students get from listening to that SES, but also the benefit that the SES gets in kind of hearing input, feedback directly from leaders at that 13, 14, 15 level. I think it's an amazing an amazing phenomenon that goes on there.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. I mean, oftentimes the SESs, they walk away with perspectives and reactions to CES and AMSC in general. It's very beneficial for them to go back to their corner of the Army and share their reaction to what they oftentimes say is just an incredible professional development academic opportunity.
Yeah, and my guess is that they probably hear things that they may not hear in any other context. Just my guess about that.
Well, absolutely. Oftentimes, we remind the students that the discussions in the classrooms are for non-attribution. In other words, what's said in there stays in there, and it's a safe place to share thoughts. Of course, we always discourage associating any stories with people's direct names, but and sometimes that benefits the SESs with an opportunity to have frank conversations.
And so let's talk about the future of the advanced course. And I'd like to point out to our Leader Up audience, we are recording this in May of 2022, and the advanced course and the intermediate course and the basic course also are coming out of basically 2 years of almost all virtual classrooms. And we have just recently, here in the late spring of 2022, started in person back. But the future is going to possibly see a blending of resident, virtual, and what we call METs. And so, Lyle, can you just talk about what the future vision of the advanced course is for those 3 different modalities?
Absolutely. It seems wrong to find a diamond in the rough when we go into COVID. But if there's one thing that was productive, at least from an academic point of view, it caused us to take coming up with the virtual experience very seriously, which we did across all the courses, to include the advanced course. And I was fortunate to be part of that 2 years ago to help craft that. And now that we are, I don't know if we're post-COVID, but we're definitely going back into the building. Right now, this is the first time, as you mentioned, David, in over 2 years, where we are simultaneously conducting resident seminars in Eisenhower Building at Fort Leavenworth, 5 of them, virtual seminars online here, 3 of them, and then 3 seminars in classrooms under the mobile education team umbrella at Picatinny Arsenal. So we are going to continue to do virtual seminars. We're not going to put it on the shelf. We need to keep it alive. Students receive it. There's a high demand for virtual seminars. It's very handy for some students that have various responsibilities under their roof at home, or for some reason they don't like to fly, or the circumstances are good for them. Plus, we don't know what the future holds. If for some reason we have to turn off resident, be it at Eisenhower or be it at a Met, then we can expand virtual to the size we've had it before, where we've almost had like 16 seminars virtually before. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. The other thing it helps us with is if a student falls prey to COVID or anything else, actually, that would pull them out of the resident classroom and they would have to go back in their hotel. We could actually tell that student to plug into the ongoing virtual seminars and join a classroom online, and they wouldn't miss too many beats to try to keep their curriculum rolling. So we're looking at that plug and play option too, not knowing what the future is going to hold.
And so, Lyle Adams, I want to thank you for your time on Leader Up and talking to our audience. And I'm just going to ask you one final question. This is kind of our walk-away question about the benefit of the advanced course, resident, virtual, or MET. If I'm a GS 13 supervisory budget analyst out there at an Army Depot, and I'm being asked to give up 4 weeks of my time to attend the advanced course. What's my motivation? What am I going to get out of this experience that's going to help my organization and make me a better member of the Army Civilian Corps?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first off, the fact that the Army believes in professional development so deeply that they will take 13s, 14s, 15s out of pocket for a month to give them a supercharged opportunity to rethink their ability as a leader is phenomenal. I mean, you never see this outside the gate. So the value of that, regardless of the modality, is incredible. Now, inside the experience, the benefits are, first off, you're in an adult learning environment that's safe. You're going to be with strangers, but you're going to be with Army professionals from all walks of Army life, be it medical, be it logistics, be it IT, be it cyber, and on and on and on. You're going to be mixed up with all these different kinds of people with an incredible background. I mean, the math alone says there's probably 300 or 400 years of experience in any seminar. And that just enriches and opens up the opportunity to learn from each other. And also, you're in a place where you're going to, by virtue of the experience, you're going to walk away with 15 new friends. And you'll be able to network with those folks into the future, and celebrate good times, and reach out for strength during challenges, whether it's professional or whether it's personal. So it can't be traded for anything else. Are there some benefits to being virtual versus being resident versus being in a mobile? Absolutely. They each have their many values and their unique values, but all in all, it's about being in the classroom, and what you can walk away from is such a valuable experience.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. I really do appreciate your time, my old friend. Thank you for coming to the Leader Up world and talking about the CES Advanced course.
It's been my honor, and I'm glad I could represent a small corner of the AMSC professionals. Thank you very much.
So there it is, Leader Up audience. That's our discussion today about the CES Advanced course. Have you done it? Is it your grade appropriate CES course? If you haven't done it, are you motivated to do it, to sign up? And if the advanced course isn't your course, what is yours? And are you taking steps to complete your grade appropriate CES course? Join us again next time for another edition of Leader Up.
As always, if you have any questions or feedback or would like to learn more about our podcast, please check the description for our email and for our website. Thanks for listening.